The Mariners just played some of the sloppiest baseball you will ever see over the last 4 days, and yet they go 3-1 over that span, thanks in large part to Julio Rodriguez, who looks better than ever. Let's talk about it here on the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Thursday, August 17th, 2023. This is Trident and Colby Patnett for the Locked On Mariners postgame show, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Thank you so much for making us your first listen after the game. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. 6-4, the final score from Kauffman Stadium. Mariners take the series finale against the Royals and win the series 3-1. Julio Rodriguez goes 5 for 5 this afternoon with 5 RBI, including the go-ahead game-winning 3-run blast. Helping the Mariners survive yet another sloppy day of baseball across the board. Colby, this series is thankfully finally over. We can finally breathe a little bit. How are you feeling after the big win?
Well, you know, Julio got picked off, so not too good.
Right.
Of course, I was going to start there.
Yeah, we had to start there.
I think relief is probably just the best word because,
right?
Yeah, let's be just blunt and perfectly honest about this. The Mariners did not play well in this entire series. They really did. They played better in the games they lost against Baltimore than they did in this series. We saw just bad. None of the starters did their job. You could argue there's a little bit of bad luck here and there, whatever. End of the day, they didn't do their job. Your two best bullpen guys each blew a save. You got picked off 3 times, I want to say. You got thrown out at the plate because of terrible base running, Canzone slows down and then he doesn't cut the bases right. Almost like he was like active, isn't going to send me, so I'm just going to shut this down. And like just mental mistakes. We saw a couple errors. We saw some
multiple errors.
We saw balls that weren't ruled errors that should have been errors. And they were strikeouts. They were
Dylan Moore today gives up on a ball that is dropped by the left fielder, ends up getting thrown out at first.
They left a ton of guys on base. They did not play well. Kansas City's bad. Particularly that pitching is some of the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And as a result, you sloppily play your way to a 3-1, totally respectable, 4-game series, in which you probably should have swept, even with as bad as you played. So yeah, I think it's just relief because it's not like they played well and they just kind of handled their business and they had one bad game and whatever, you write it off. No, they had 4 pretty bad games where at some point at every level they failed, which sounds weird to say for the offense because the offense, I think, scored, it was 8, 10, 6 and 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. More than enough typically, but they left so many guys on base. They missed so many pitches down the middle of the plate. They had so many base running mistakes. If they play like they did in this series against Houston this weekend, they will get swept and they'll probably get run out of the building. They have to step it up. And yet, at the end of the day, even if they lost today, they still would have had a net gain of a half game on Toronto just because of, Toronto had 2 days off. So it's frustrating. It really is. And I don't like to complain about wins, and I'm not going to complain about the win, but there's a difference between complaining about the win and looking at how you won and saying can you repeat that? Can that?
Oh, they didn't win the way I wanted them to.
Yeah,
you always give me. Yeah,
that's you. That's not me.
No, that's you. That's you right now. That's you.
No, that's not, because I'm happy they won.
All right, yeah.
But again, we have to as analysts look at how they played.
Yes.
In this 4-game series, and it is not good enough. Not to beat the Astros, Probably not good enough to even beat the White Sox. It's not going to beat Toronto. It's not going to beat Houston. It's not going to beat Tampa or anybody you might face in the playoffs. You have to play better. They didn't play well. Thankfully, they got bailed out.
Yeah.
Today in particular, pretty much by one guy. And yesterday, pretty much by one guy. And the first and 2 games before, pretty much Ty France, pretty much Teoscar Hernandez. So they had individual players step up for a couple games here and there in this series, but overall, the team did not play well today. They did not play well in this series. So, it's frustrating because it's Kansas City and you just feel like you want to boat race them. But again, they won 3 of 4, so hopefully it's a kick in the pants and they realize like, man, we can't try and win like that every single time out. We have to play good ball, and hopefully that starts tomorrow.
Hopefully this is just isolated to this series and we move on, because it did look like, just from the way that they were playing, like they weren't taking their opponent too seriously. Like they weren't taking this series too seriously. That's why I took issue with Julio's thing when he got picked off. Like it was more just it wasn't even to single out Julio. It was just a culmination of everything that's happened over the last 4 days and the way that this team has played. It was very like head in the clouds baseball.
Right. And by the way, let's just put this out there. Julio didn't get picked off because, somebody made an amazing play. Julio got picked off because he wasn't paying attention.
Sure.
That's the long and the short. You watch the replay, his head is down when the ball is starting. So
sure.
Regardless of,
we're not focusing on that. We're gonna focus on the win.
Don't challenge me.
I know you will, but I'm gonna divert us off of this path.
But again, it's not just that though, right? It's still more turning his back and running back into the. It's not knowing where to go with the ball. It's not running your hardest when you're trying to score. It's not cutting the bases like you're trying to score. And we saw Julio get mad at Canzone for that. Julio was touching second when Canzone was about a third of the way.
Yeah,
like there's no excuse for Dom Canzone to not be. I don't want to say safe, but like to not be rounding third when Julio's touching second. Like there's no excuse for that. They were sloppy. They played really sloppy ball. And even the lineup today looked kind of like we don't really care. We don't respect our opponent. So like, we're going to have Brian O'Keefe hit 6th. Like, no offense to Brian O'Keefe, but like 6th.
Yeah.
6th.
Yeah, all due respect to friend of the show Brian O'Keefe, but that's a wild decision. Even with what was behind him in the lineup with Caballero and Marlowe and Haggerty. I mean, Cade Marlowe had a great game today, by the way. Like, give it up to Cade Marlowe.
Caballero had a really nice series at the plate.
Yeah, Caballero, aside from the error and then getting picked off last night
at the plate, almost got picked off again today. By the way,
he did. Yeah, but
Caballero
overall
was really good at the plate.
Yeah, overall had a really nice series offensively. That was weird putting O'Keefe there. But anyway, enough of the complaints. This at the end of the day, you're a half game out from the third and final wild card. You did pretty much exactly what you needed to do in the series, which was to win the series. You would have liked to see them sweep the series, but you won the series. That's what's most important at the end of the day. And we're on to Houston. So all right, so let's talk more about Julio's day and the rest in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners postgame show is brought to you by Nutrafol. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides a whole-body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code Locked On MLB. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Thank you again for making us your first listen after the Mariners 6-4 win over the Kansas City Royals to take 3 games out of 4 from Kansas City. They are on to Houston starting tomorrow. You can catch that series over the course of the weekend on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. So again, Julio goes 5 for 5 today. He pretty much carries the Mariners to this series victory. He had a great series overall. Today, he became the first player in Mariners history with 20 plus home runs in each of his first 2 major league seasons. He also became the 4th player in Mariners history with 20 plus home runs and 30 plus stolen bases in a single season, and the 4th player in Mariners history to record back-to-back games with 4 plus hits. The last one to do that, D. Strange Gordon, back in 2018. Julio was a triple shy of the cycle today. He actually had that triple on the Canzone play we were talking about earlier, but they ended up ruling that retroactively to a double. So he ends up getting 3 singles, a double, and then the 3-run home run. And the 3-run home run is obviously the story here, right? This was what I've been waiting for. I have talked about this for so long that I want Julio to be the guy that every team fears in those situations when you have a 1-run lead or a 2-run lead, and everyone in that building is terrified of number 44 stepping up to the plate, like I am of Yordan Alvarez in situations like that, like I am with Aaron Judge in situations like that. And Julio had his Yordan Alvarez, his Aaron Judge-esque moment in this game. That was sick. That was one of my most favorite Julio moments so far. And it's exactly what the Mariners need right now, right, Colby?
I mean, you could do without getting picked off. No, I'm joking. No, I think my favorite part of the Julio home run, which obviously is majestic and fantastic, is that he did it on a pitch that every club has gone to against Julio in that exact situation.
Mm-hmm.
Velocity and Julio usually can't get his hands through, and he'll ground it weakly to the shortstop. We've seen how many double plays where Julio has very early in a count, first pitch, gotten velocity in or middle in, and he's just rolled over to the shortstop. It's happened, I mean, so much that like it's a meme at this point. And instead, this time Julio went up there looking for that pitch. He knew how they were going to try and attack him. He got his hips through, he got the bat through. And I don't care what the exit velo said. I don't care what the distance was. They're wrong. It was hit harder. It was hit further than that because that was a majestic shot. I don't know if you saw the replay. Garcia, the third baseman, never even turned around. Just like, nope, I know where that's going to land. Like it was, and it was elevated. It was up and in. It wasn't a terrible pitch. It wasn't a great pitch, but it wasn't a terrible pitch from Hernandez, who's got some real velocity and some real stuff. So the fact that Julio kind of like sensed almost like, okay, how have they pitched me in the past in these spots? It's off speed away. It's, heat inside. I'm going to sit on the one pitch that I think I'm going to get. And then he didn't miss it. So yeah, it was just fantastic process to go behind that and understanding of the situation, understanding of how teams have attacked you in the past. And, kind of an understanding of the moment. Like, yeah, I like it has to be me today. Like it sucks that it has to be me today, but also I like embrace that it has to be me today because that's who Julio has to be. Julio is the type of player who should have games like this a couple times a year, like 5 for 5, maybe not that, but like, you know what I mean? He's going to have games
where he has a moment,
he
like
puts the team on his back and he says, I will carry us to the finish line. And this, I don't want to say this was his first one. Yesterday's game was pretty close. But it feels like this is the first one of the year. Last year, you remember the Atlanta game and all that stuff. And so, yeah, it was great to see, obviously. I think just the most impressive hit might be the liner he hit for the double over Melendez, because I don't think that thing ever got more than like 6 feet off the ground. It just kept going. Like Melendez thought he had it. He thought it was right at him. And all of a sudden it goes, oh no, that's got way more velocity than I thought. Julio, I think, had 4 hard hit balls today. I can't even think about what hit, wasn't hit hard. And it was just kind of funny because again, we saw the screaming liner over the left fielder's head. We saw the home run, and then we saw 2 infield singles. Like you saw the entire package from Julio today, minus, stolen base, but you saw everything. You saw the arm. He got an assist today. So yeah, it was Julio. The Mariners needed somebody to carry them because this team was dead for most of the day. Yeah. And Julio, after the 4th, 5th inning, it was just felt like he was like, I'll do it myself. Like, I can't wait for somebody else to step up. I have to do it. And he did it. So, it's an important step going forward. It is funny, that I think before yesterday's game, Julio was hitting like 255, 251, something like that. Today, he ends with his season batting average at 269. His WRC plus has jumped up to 119 on the year.
Yeah.
Julio entered today as the 16th most valuable position player in all of baseball. Sneaky suspicion that he'll jump a couple guys on that list after today's game. Since July 1, Julio has been just an absolute freak. He's looked like Mookie Betts, which is what he basically was from May 1st to the end of the year last year. So it's great to see. You needed it. And Julio, today is kind of like the culmination of what has been a really good 6-week stretch for him. And, I'm sure at some point he'll have an 0 for 18 some point this year, something like that. But right now he is your best hitter by far. And I think, honestly, when JP comes back, JP can hit second. There's really not a wrong answer there. But, it'd be nice to have Julio and JP both going at the same time, especially when you consider Ty Francis, didn't have a great game today, but he did kind of get robbed by the stadium of a grand slam. So baseball is cruel because Julio had 4 hard hit balls and went 5 for 5. Ty had 3 hard hit balls and went 0 for 5, including what would have been a grand slam in 29 major league ballparks except for Kauffman Stadium. Yeah, of course. Yep, sure, of course. Yeah, why wouldn't it? But I don't have the Mariners had a stretch at any point this year with JP Crawford, Julio, Ty France, and either Gino or Teo all, hitting at their 100th percentile. No, they haven't. And, we'll see how soon JP gets back. We'll see how he plays once he does return, but it feels like Ty is locked in right now. Julio's definitely locked in right now. Gino had a really good first 2 games, really bad next 2. So who knows what's going on with Gino. Teo, again, kind of the same. He had a 5-hit game, and then I think he went 0 for yesterday, and then I think he had a double today. He had a double today. Correctly. We'll see. It's really tough to judge the Mariners offense overall, though, because Kansas City's pitching is that bad. It's really bad. It's really bad. But at the very least, I mean, look, the journey to the destination was ugly, but the destination overall looks like about what you would hope for against this pitching staff. Again, they scored 7 runs in the first game or 8 runs in the first game. I can't remember. And then 10 in the first win, and then 6 last night and today. You'll absolutely take that against this pitching staff. But again, just the way you got there wasn't great. It was kind of a bumpy road, but yeah. We're going to talk about George Kirby's start in just a moment, but first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners postgame show is brought to you by Sleeper. Want the chance to win more money with less picks? Head on over to Sleeper, where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. Head to Sleeper and swing for the fences with up to 100 times payouts. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players they like and select more or less on their stats like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right and you can win big. Making your picks is easy and takes only 30 seconds or less. And if you win, you can withdraw your payouts safe and quickly. Use promo code Locked On, that's LOCKDON, and you'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Thank you so much for making us your first listen after the game. Mariners win 6-4 over the Kansas City Royals. They're going to take on the Houston. Stop looking at me like that. They're going to take on the Houston Astros starting tomorrow. Over the course of the weekend, you can catch all the action on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. If you're watching on YouTube, you probably just saw a plethora of cuts, edits made because I could not get through that ad read whatsoever, but I did it. I made it through. Thank you. So let's talk about George Kirby after I just dropped my spaghetti. Congrats on doing that on only your second attempt too. Second, yeah, thank you. Yeah, second. Only the second. By the way, I definitely not 4. Yeah, real quick, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Cal Raleigh, who's still hitting out of his mind right now. Pinch hit home run to add some insurance, which Matt Brash didn't actually need, which
surprising. We actually got good Matt Brash today. And kind of last night. I mean, he gave up the home run, but still he got the job
He's really
done.
good after the home run.
Yeah, he was really good after the home run. So he got the job done last night. He got the job done tonight, despite pitching 5 games in the last 6 days.
Yeah, I would call this good enough Matt Brash today.
Sure.
But like, yeah, he's probably down for tomorrow. And I bet if the Mariners had their had their preferences play out, then he would probably be down for Saturday too. So yeah, once again, Saucedo was hot and ready to go, and then
what's with that, man?
I don't know. I don't know, but
weird.
Anyway,
all right.
Hey, we're giving a shout out to Cal Raleigh. How about we give a shout out to Trent Thornton, who went 1-2-3 on 10 pitches against the top of the Royals order. That it's like the only guy who looked like he knew how to get out Bobby Witt and Michael Garcia. So like, good job, Trent. We needed you. Yeah, but I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point. But like, did you find it odd that Scott took out George after 73 pitches with a bullpen is down? That was as down bad as his is.
Well, George gave up 13 hard hit balls today.
Yeah.
12? Like, I don't know. I don't know if he trusted him the rest of the way to go another inning. Like,
I don't know, because it's just like
only 2 strikeouts as well. Like,
give up a lot of hard contact, but until that bottom of the 6th, he was pretty much cruising. So I don't know. It just felt weird, just because the bullpen is in such rough shape.
Yeah,
and even at 4-2, like, that's not an unwinnable game, but that is a probably sub 30% chance to win that game, down by 2 after the 7th or after the 6th, even with the bad bullpen. So I don't know. I just felt kind of like, that's doesn't sound like he's hurt or anything like that, so that's good. But I just thought that was a little bit of an interesting call by Scott. Not a bad call necessarily, just interesting.
Yeah, the Royals had an 83% chance of winning the game after the Melendez double.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it's not exactly like that, because I don't think win chance or the win probabilities factor in individual teams. Just like, of every game that's ever had this exact situation, this team has won 83% of the time, and obviously that number, if you factored in the Royals bullpen, would go down less than 83, but it's not good. So again, I'm not criticizing Scott for that decision. I just thought it was an interesting one, specifically because of the state of the Mariners bullpen at the moment.
Yeah. So, I mean, whatever, it worked out, right? So I'm not going to give Scott too hard of a time. It was a little strange because, I mean, look, even with all the hard hit balls, 4 home runs in a game, like after 6, when you're only at 73 pitches, especially when it's George Kirby, right? We're not talking about Emerson Hancock here. We're talking about George Kirby. Like, that's not a disastrous start. It's not a good start necessarily, but it's not a disastrous start either. It's not like you need to yank him. But yeah, I just kind of wonder if just Scott saw or didn't like what he was seeing and just didn't trust him the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or maybe George is sick. Kind of a weird day for George though. 5 whiffs on 47 swings.
Yeah, weird.
Only 11 called strikes. Like,
dude, this Royals offense, man, they're annoying.
They're swinging, dude. Like,
they're really annoying. They're really, really freaking annoying.
Like, here's the thing too, right? Like, they didn't chase a lot, so it's not like you just like, oh, we'll just throw balls and they'll chase.
Well, and also they had multiple hits throughout the course of the series on pitches outside of the zone.
Yeah, their outside zone contact rate was like Kansas City knew exactly what pitches each one of them could hit. Every player in that lineup knew exactly what type of pitch they could hit. And if they saw it, they saw a pitch that they could put the bat on, they were going to swing at it and just kind of let the BABIP gods take over, because there are pitches that nobody should ever swing at. And yet they somehow did. And they, hit a jammed line drive over Dylan Moore's head or Caballero's head. And that happened repeatedly over and over again. Felt like the only 2 guys who hit the ball hard consistently in this entire series were Witt and Perez. Everybody else felt like they were hitting like 89 to 90 mile per hour bleeders, and they just kind of find a spot. And doesn't matter if the pitch was 3-4 inches off the outside corner or, at the shoulders of somebody. Like, If they could get the bat to it, they were going to swing at it, and they put the ball in play a lot. The Mariners only had 4 strikeouts today, and they only had, I think, 5 or 6 yesterday. Like, the Mariners pitching was not able to, put guys away. And that is in large part why the Royals were able to score so many runs, because they'd get a guy on third base, he was going to score. Like, they didn't leave anybody on third base because you couldn't get the strikeout. They just put the ball in play, and your infield is usually drawn in, so they'd get a hit out of it. And it's just really pesky type of offense. And they have just enough power from guys like Witt and Perez. And yeah, they're on a bit of a heater right now too. So yeah, it's kind of a perfect storm for kind of a offensive driven series. But at the end of the day, Seattle is a team that's built on pitching. They need to pitch better. Like just facts. It doesn't matter how hot a team is. If you are built on pitching and you threw out, your 2 best guys in these last 2 games, and they, to be charitable, survived their outings against this team, like, they weren't good enough. That's really what it is. The Mariners pitching was not good enough in this series. But give credit to Kansas City too. They're a really aggressive team. They're really hot right now at the plate. You could see why, despite, being one of the best offenses for the last month, they're still 50 games under 500 or whatever it is. Like,
Yeah,
you can see why, because of the pitching. But yeah, give them credit. They're definitely swinging it right now.
well, at least we don't have to see them again this year. Oh, right.
That'll be different at T-Mobile.
That is true. Kaufman is something. It's a word that I cannot say on this podcast, but on the Control the Zone podcast, we'll just leave it at that. Subscribe, by the way, patreon.com/Control the Zone. That's going to do it for our show today. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners postgame show, which has been an absolute cursed recording, but we made it through. For Colby Padnood, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. It's TANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen after the game. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Astros starting tomorrow on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.